so funny that that says Decade of Decadence and how long ago that DVD that was captured from was, because you figure I'm pretty sure that DVD came out toward the end of his initial run, and it's been another 10 years since that initial run ended.
Yeah.
So
I want to say that was an '08 DVD, 98 to '08.
oh wait, sounds right. Only because I remember buying it around the same time I was buying newborn baby gifts for a baby shower. But that's a whole other story for a whole other time. Although we are both the dads, not always on wrestling, and buying baby shower gifts does tie into that title very nicely. So thank you and for the inadvertent segue. I am of course Jeff Meacham. He is the Renegade JJ Williams, and we have had a hell of an October. I'll tell you what, man. We went out to, as I said a couple weeks ago, out to Hill Valley / Haddonfield, and had ourselves a wonderful time out there doing the whole meet and greet with everybody that was involved there at the Halloween movie, and seeing the sites that I didn't know were there thanks to you.
It was quite the magical mystery tour, if you will.
It really was, and I do remember during I think it was either Stat Boy Sports Bar or that bonus talk wrestling that kind of got thrown on my lap that week, the week after we did that we are bookending this month of mystery, the month of October that is often the spooky month, with two very distinct topics that tie into October and the spooky and the supernatural, if you will. Hell in a Cell started this off back on October 1st, and here we are, October 29th, and it is the celebration of the birthday of our subject today, the Rated-R Superstar himself, the Hall of Famer, the 11-time, as of now, world champion, Edge. And I know Edge is very important to me for a multitude of reasons. I know Edge, from what I can generate in this concussed multiple times over brain, Edge is important to you because he debuted the year that you really fortified your fandom for professional wrestling. If you figure, we've all told the tale of your initial pay-per-view purchase offering being SummerSlam. That was his pay-per-view debut, and it's crazy to think that was almost 25 years ago now. Just bonkers.
That wasn't my first pay-per-view purchase.
Okay.
But it was what they were building up to at the time that I started watching Raw.
Okay.
I don't think the first pay-per-view that me and my dad purchased, I don't think we purchased one until either Mania 15 or Backlash 99.
Either way,
that was a lot of money back then for the pay-per-views.
Very much so.
So in our infancy, we had to pick and choose, and we would usually get people that we knew that ordered the pay-per-view to put it onto a VHS for us so that we could then watch it a couple days later and see what happened. Maybe after Raw had already gone off the air. So we kind of already knew what happened, but then we could go back and see how it played out.
Yeah. What's a VHS, Uncle Jay?
The Highway to Hell, that SummerSlam was definitely, it was between Fully Loaded and SummerSlam that year, that 1998 that I was introduced to it. So, and like you said, Edge was an integral part of that summer.
Yes, very much. And when you think that his debut on pay-per-view came in a mixed tag team match, teaming with Sable, whose husband is arguably one of the most influential people of our generation in professional wrestling / sports entertainment, teaming up against her at the time, I don't think we're still together or not, but at the time, husband and his partner, of course, Mark Merrill and Jacqueline. It, again, the circumstances of which we find the four back then and when we find the four now are completely across the universe, as you would say in your group, from one another. Wow.
I mean, we've got two Hall of Famers, and at the end of the day, two should be in the Hall of Fame for completely different reasons. I mean, Mark Merrow, Johnny B. Bad was a hell of a talent.
Right.
back in those 90s. And then Sable, love her or hate her, polarizing figure that she is, Mrs. Brock Lesnar these days.
Yes.
She did a world of help for the fledgling Divas division back then.
Yes.
And it's funny because you say that SummerSlam is his debut match. This DVD, which thank God I still owned this thing.
I got it too.
I dug this out of the wells, had to wipe some spider webs and mothballs off of it to watch it.
Right.
That proclaims his following month, the Breakdown in Your House pay-per-view, as his pay-per-view debut, because it was his solo debut pay-per-view match. So
and I do agree with you.
Even Edge tries to forget about SummerSlam with Sable, so
Well, I'm wondering if the wording is placed as such to make you try to forget. And let me say, for the record, a lot of you are going to say I'm eating full of shit because in the first Talk Wrestling ever, he lambasted Mark Marrow. Mark Marrow has become a Hall of Fame person in the last 13 and a half years. So I said what I said about Marrow back then because he chose to jump on the let's attack the business bandwagon along with Deborah Marshall and a lot of other people. He's not that guy anymore. So,
and people's opinions can change in 15 years.
Exactly. And as I've always said, I'll even put it on my own self. Opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one. They usually stink.
Yep.
My opinion about Mark Marrow retrospectively, pretty smelly. So I look back with regret on how I attacked Mark Marrow. Nancy Grace, not so much. She's still a piece of crap. But Mark, definitely, having talked extensively with Dallas Page about Mark Marrow, not the case. And like you said, Jacqueline, a Hall of Fame wrestler, a Hall of Fame lady. We've both had the privilege of, I believe, of meeting Jacqueline. I know I did it a couple times over the years.
I don't believe I've met Jackie. I could be wrong, though.
But, yeah, I mean, that's where Edge's beginnings really started on pay-per-view. He did have the match on Raw that went a little bit backwards with, I believe it was Miguel of Los Pericuas, that Miguel ended up ending his career because of a neck injury that, you could debate Edge's fault or not. But from that summer right up until this last summer, again, a Hall of Fame career to be sure. Trying to pick 10 has been one of the biggest bitches of this year.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I said it like this before we went on the air, and so I'll repeat it right now. As the man who cannot be seen says in the trailer for You Think You Know Me, quote, I don't think I've ever seen Edge have a bad match.
Yeah.
So trying to pick 10 matches from this man's career to try to talk about, there's definitely going to be a ton left on the cutting room floor, if you will.
Right. And I will say this for two things. One, trying to pick just one match between those two.
Yeah.
And not have it be the John Cena versus Edge hour. Like, golly. It was a pain in my ass.
I was going to say, like, Edge has wrestled all of the top talent multiple times.
Yeah.
How do you pick one match against Christian?
Yeah. Against and people will often say credibly that Chris Jericho is the greatest of all time of our generation, whatever we want to call it. Shawn Michaels is always in that discussion. You don't often hear Edge, and I don't understand why. His feuds he did have from the moment he broke out and won that glorious tribute to the Stanley Cup that was the 2001 King of the Ring, has just he's very rarely had a feud that maybe had a match or two that didn't really hit home, but the feud overall, very rare there was a stinker.
Yeah.
And because he can work with anybody, he's become that Ric Flair over the years where he can work the broom, not only get the broom in the Hall of Fame based on their feud.
Yeah.
So,
right.
I mean,
the broom should get a title push.
Seriously, I got to push God Almighty. Come back next week, sweep the floor with them. Anyway, and again, we've been going on for about 10 minutes about Edge, and we haven't even started the list yet because that's how awesome we think Edge is. And,
Yes.
when he ushered in the era of awesomeness, being the 2001 King of the Ring, he really just, the rocket was strapped to his own ass. He just had to make sure it ignited and took off, and he did. Having said that, I now pass the baton, if you will, over to the Renegade J.J. Williams for his top 10 in the history of Edge's greatest matches.
So bear with me, because as we've said multiple times since this relaunched on May the 4th of last year,
right,
I don't watch the current product anymore. So you can immediately cut any Edge matches that have happened within the last, let's say, decade off of my list.
Well, figure he didn't come back to us until the Royal Rumble last year. So they've been few and far between, luckily. And I will state also, I don't have any of the current ones either, but I will throw them up honorably. I mean, you figure the Edge Orton feud from this last year and a half, the Edge Rollins stuff, which as we tape this, they have not gone into Hell in a Cell in Saudi Arabia yet. So that very well could crack the list. We'll read a tape after I got back from the cruise. So
most of my matches come from two specific eras in Edge's career.
Yes.
So honorable mention to virtually anything that I don't have listed.
Right.
Because as we stated, as Cena said, you'd be hard pressed to find a bad Edge match.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
I think I can speak for Jeff when I say honorable mention to everything not listed between our two lists. And that may be a cheesy cop-out way to go, but God damn it, it's my list.
That's right. Mine's the exact same way. I do have one specific one, though. So
my number 10 is really two matches because it's cause effect. Without match A, there is no match B.
Right.
Match A comes from April 3rd, 2005. The original Money in the Bank ladder match.
Nice.
Chris Benoit, Kane, Christian, Edge, Shelton Benjamin, and Chris Jericho. And it's only number 10 because of the chaos that is ladder matches, that many individuals.
Right.
Aside from Edge winning, were his spots the most memorable? Doubt it. I think everybody remembers Shelton Benjamin running up the ladder, though.
Yeah.
So that's why it's only number 10. But the effect comes to January 8th, 2006, where the man became the ultimate opportunist, cashed in his briefcase to finally become the WWE champion, defeating the man who cannot be seen, as is evident by the fact that he's not in any of those photos, John Cena himself.
Yes.
And again, it's only number 10 because the match itself was under 2 minutes.
Right.
It's hard to put that match much higher than 10 or 9 because of the shortness of it. Now, it would be the kickoff of their legendary, like what I did there, feud, but without Money in the Bank, there's no cash in, there's no Money in the Bank as we know it today. Right. Edge was the standard bearer, the blueprint of everything that Money in the Bank has become in the 16 years, which, hold on a second, can I just pause for a minute there? Money in the Bank is older than your boy, but not by much. Your boy is almost as old as Money in the Bank.
Yeah, that kind of made the hair silver rather than gray like it usually does. Oofa.
So those two matches combined are my number 10.
Very good. I like that. And let me say, since that's not on my list as far as the cash in and becoming champion, to this day, it is one of the few times I have watched somebody become WWE champion during my fandom that I really didn't latch onto at first, but that I boohooed like a baby over. When Edge cashed in, you have to remember, when Edge cashed in, I was in the process of a still less than a year old relationship at the time with the person who would ultimately create Dylan with me. I was very emotional on levels anyway. But being able to watch that show and him really be a non-factor as intercontinental contender and getting disqualified on purpose, it was like, huh. And then when Vince came, I knew when Vince came out what it was. You could hear the crowd react when he said cashing in. I looked at Dylan's mom and I said, Edge is coming out again. She goes, wait, what? I said, just. And Vince, Vince doing the Vince stuff. And then he said what he said. And she reacted like she'd got a shiny new bauble for Christmas. I was lighting up like the Christmas tree. And man, just that, like you said, that 2 minutes of like, oh my God, is it going to happen? It's going to happen. And it happened. Lita's reaction at ringside is one of the best things I've ever seen. It very much, for me, equates the same way of Joni's reaction when Triple H actually got the pinfall, actually became the champion. It was one of those, oh my God, he actually did it. And part of them both had to be going, effing finally. So, such a great...
I say Paulie's reaction when Brock beat the streak?
Paulie's was one of shock. Amy Dumas and Joni Lowers was one of, my guy finally effing deserves this, and he's got it. And if you put that picture back up of them at the top of the ramp with the title over Edge's head, you can see, as much as he's being the Rated-R Superstar and she's being the Triple X star she was going to be the next night during the celebration, you can see the genuineness in Adam and Amy's faces coming bluntly through, without question. There, it's one of my favorite moments of all time. And for me, 31 years in, as we tape this week, that's not a small statement.
No. So. And that duo is the inspiration for my wardrobe here today, because you could definitely have seen them doing a shoot like this. Why they never tried to capitalize on it, no clue. Vince, your business sense is slipping. Has been for 15 years since you didn't think of it back then. Yeah. We won't get into what it is now, but I digress.
And the irony of ironies, for Halloween 2005, me, as blonde a wig as I could find on my already balding head, Caddy Halloween store trench coat, actual work briefcase, and her as Lita.
Which is funny because Halloween 05 was the year that I dressed as Matt and my lady dressed as Lita.
Yeah. And we talked about that one.
Will was supposed to do Jeff, but decided to be his own thing and be the Hurricane instead.
Well, and we got him on WBTV, Captured for Life, and it's funnier in hell, so it's okay.
Number 9.
Yes, please move on quickly.
Comes from quite a few years prior to that. I believe Jeff Jarrett would refer to this as the summer of no worries. But considering the storyline that was going on at the time, everybody has worries.
Yes.
The midst of the invasion, August 19th, 2001.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Edge versus Lance Storm for the Intercontinental title. And again, I apologize for the crudeness of some of these images. Some of them are just so old.
Right.
Finding a good one is difficult.
Yeah, it's funny the difference between that image and the one we had to use of Taker and Kane versus DDP and Canyon. Wow, what so much better here.
Thank you.
Yes.
I did try.
No, you did. You did great.
But yeah, I mean, Edge had already been Intercontinental Champion, but if I remember correctly, it had kind of eluded his grasp since his initial flirtation with it.
Literal flirtation, like a one night stand with it. If you figure 99 from house show to
we'll be getting there in a few minutes.
Aha!
But,
there you go.
Spoiler alert.
Wah, wah, wah.
But this was his first real grasp of the belt, and it's sad because going back looking at the history, he had it, then he lost it a month later, then he won it back a month after that. Then it was just such a hot potato with the title at the time. Unfortunately, that was happening a lot back then because you had such an influx of talent.
Yes.
You had so many titles. Man, it was very much like everybody gets a turn.
Right. Very much
Whose
so.
turn is it this week? Oh, okay. Hugh Morris, you can be United States champion for 3 days until we tape SmackDown.
No.
Then we're going to get the belt off you and we're going to pass it over to Chris Kanyon, and he'll hold it until the following Raw.
You know what's funny? General Rection, Bill DeMott's other non-humor, was actually the U.S. champion.
I know he was.
Dying, like, WCW wasn't dying. It was hanging from the noose, waiting to be cut loose, hopefully, maybe.
It was stacked up with that Judy Bagwell on the pole.
And, of course, Kanyon was the U.S. champion that was awarded from Booker T when he's like, I got 2 of these. Here, you take this one.
The Alliance MVP.
Yeah, and then Booker advocates the U.S. title, and Angle whoops that ass for the world title. Thump! Same night. Oopsie.
But Edge versus Storm, 2 Canadians, very well gifted in the ring.
Oh my God.
Aside from Angle at that point, I want to say Storm was probably one of the most technically sound individuals that Edge had come across. And the fact that Storm was kept in a mid-card level position where he could go with Edge really, I feel, helped Edge in his career at that time.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And no, I don't forget about his debut solo pay-per-view match with Owen. I know he went with Owen, another really technically sound individual as well. But Owen, unfortunately, was not around long enough to really have some kind of meat on a feud with Edge. Whereas Lance Storm and Angle are guys that were around for a lengthy period for Edge to really get entangled with.
And if you figure they built that off the back of the very first match at Invasion itself, Storm and Awesome versus Edge and Christian. So, dare we say Renegade level story weaving? Like, dare we even go there with the WWF back then?
Back then, aside from the Invasion angle itself, which, depending who you talk to, was really good, really horrible, or was kind of middle of the road. It is what it is, baby, for what they had to deal with.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
I still look back fondly on the Invasion.
Yeah,
I get the fact that it could have been better, but if I was Hollywood Hogan or Kevin Nash or Steen or Goldberg and I had the opportunity to sit on my ass and collect millions of dollars or go on a 300-date a year tour and get my ass handed to me and my body bruised and collect money, I'm going to sit on my ass.
Yeah. And, people really, they had that whole chicken shit, chicken salad argument, and people say it leans more toward chicken shit. I think at worst, the Invasion is like day old chicken salad. Like, it's not the best we've ever had. It's sitting on the shelf at the deli for a day, but it still tastes pretty good.
It's been discounted, about 25%, so get out of there, but still eat it. It's still passable.
Still edible, 100%. That's right. Without question, Jay.
Yes. Number 8 on my list, we go from SummerSlam 01 to Survivor Series 06.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to discuss Team D-Generation X with the Hardys and CM Punk versus Team Rated-R KO with Johnny Nitro, Mike Knox, and Gregory Helms.
Look at that cast of characters, will you?
I mean, in all seriousness, the only person who really didn't fit then and still doesn't fit looking back on it is Mike Knox.
I was going to say.
He is completely out of place there. But you think about where Johnny Nitro, John Morrison, whatever you want to call him, John Hennigan, is and was there and is and what is at now.
Right.
You think about where Sugar Shane Helms, the 1/3 of 3 count, to the Hurricane, to this gimmick, and where he is now. I believe he's a producer backstage.
Yes, sir.
And then you go to the other side of the coin, and you've got D-Generation X Hall of Famers.
Yes.
You've got the Hardy Boys, guaranteed Hall of Famers.
Yes.
You've got CM Punk, who is making waves in AEW and should be a contender for the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Don't know if he ever will based on current relationships with the E, but I digress there.
No relations.
Orton, surefire Hall of Famer.
Yes.
At least 2-time, solo and with Evolution when Evolution goes in.
100%.
You know, you've got a hell of a crew of characters there. And even though Rated-R KO didn't just lose, they got obliterated. You know, they went the way of the St. Louis Blues when we played them in the playoffs that one year.
We mentioned that broom earlier that you get over. Well, he got swept by the broom, so there you go. He done put it over all right.
You know, but such a great match.
Yeah, the thing, it's a fun match. It's not one of Edge's greatest nights kayfabe professionally or anything, but you know,
there's going to be a couple others on this list that I know that they lost as well. But it's not always about wins or losses. It's about the content within the 5, 10, 20, 30 minutes of the match.
Yeah. I remember that match so vividly now with the beauty of hindsight, with Triple H's arm around CM Punk's around shoulders, looking out at the crowd, getting ready to do the DX promo. I look back and go, man, fast forward 5 years, that ain't happened.
Nope.
People try to on their heads with pedigrees and go to sleeps. Sometimes for real in Phil's case. Like, wow.
You look at that match and you think about what could have been.
Right. Because you figure
they had really gotten behind him the way they teased like they were behind him in that moment.
Yeah. And you figure within that match, you had the DX versus Orton and Edge feud, which led us into New Year's Revolution, and of course, unfortunately, Triple H's other quad tier, the one we don't really talk about very often, in January of 2007. You figure Morrison / Nitro and Punk would feud well into the following summer when tragedy befell the company and they had to carry the ECW championship feud on their damn backs. You know, Mike Knox grew more facial hair. Good for him. You know, Helms, like you said, became a standout cruiserweight champion, a standout talent in that little bubble of, you know, we have a bloated roster, but he's doing good shit, pal.
Yeah. We went from stand back, there's a hurricane coming through, to stand out, Gregory Helms.
Yes. Stand out of my way. I'm going to show you why. And man, a year and a half cruiserweight champion, nothing to sneeze at whatsoever. Great run there. You figure the Hardys stayed pretty consistent, whether they were against each other or as a team throughout their WWE run initially. So again, Mike Knox is the one that stands out there as what did he do? But like you said, that match, great, solid Survivor Series elimination match. One of those Survivor Series elimination matches where the heels, you know, are the cannon fodder. They take the sweep, but it's a fun little thing to watch.
Mike Knox and Snitsky would have been a hell of a heel tag team.
Yeah, when you figure they put Snitsky and Heidenreich together, if you put the bonkersness of Mike Knox in that, man, that's a trio that I don't want to run to in a dark alley, let alone in the ring.
Yeah.
So
from Survivor Series 06, we come back in time a little bit to Vengeance 2004.
Gotta go back in time. Ooh, I like that. That's a good one.
Edge versus Orton for the Intercontinental Championship.
Very nice.
You know, Orton, of course, would drop the title here after having a stranglehold on that belt for a good 7-8 months.
Yes, after being...
So that he could walk into SummerSlam the following month and find the title laying in the middle of the ring, pick it up in his peach tights, and hit the turnbuckle posing.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second when we get to my list about the freaking peach tights. Wowzers. That was the first Orton figure I ever had, for the record.
But I mean, you know, I know I knew that at some point we were going to mention Edge and Orton and their rivalry and feud. You touched on their current rivalry, that happened beginning of the year, last year before he got hurt again at the start of the show. But I think of Edge and Orton and I go back to that.
Absolutely.
Orton in the heat of the Legend Killer, just on the cusp literally of greatness, as he would get the title the next month, defeating Benoit. Edge should have been there already by this point, but injuries had sidelined him during some of his most integral pushes.
Yes.
I'm still pissed off that year's Taboo Tuesday, it wasn't Edge to face Hunter. It was Shawn to face Hunter. I still think that Edge should have had that match, whether he walked out with the belt or not.
Right.
I think that would have been a huge push and test to see, is he ready for the trigger to get pulled?
Right.
But,
it's a shame.
it's one of those matches where they're both right there before it happens.
Yeah. Yeah. And
it's the lighting of the fuse before the big explosion.
Definitely. And I will definitely get more into that match in a few minutes. I'll leave it there.
Oh, spoiler. Okay. From Vengeance 04, we go back in time a little bit more. We go to October 2001. Edge and Christian for the Intercontinental title in a ladder match.
I think loser had to wear that hat forever.
Yeah, I was going to say, Christian's got the belt on. He's got that hat. He's like, yeah, I'm out of my brother's shadow. And Edge is standing there with his arms folded like, I can't believe Jay's wearing that piece of shit hat.
Oh, I'm out of brother's shadow, but the hat's overcoming my entire head, so I can't see anyway. Good grief, Jay. Oh, terrible.
But I mean, you figure the ladders have played such an integral part in the rise of Edge and Christian.
Definitely.
And we'll get more in depth into some of those in a little bit. Spoiler alert.
Both sides.
But you figure, the Terry Invitational Tournament to TLC to Money in the Bank, ladders have always been a defining cornerstone of Edge, Christian, Matt, Jeff, and even Bubba and Devon.
Yep.
So, like I said at the beginning, when you got to try and find a match between Edge and Christian, the ladder, baby, that's where you go. And Christian was on the side of the Alliance. Edge was defending the WWF's honor again during the invasion. You get the ladder involved for these two best friends, now bitter enemies. You're going to have a classic. And they did.
When you figure that Edge Christian rivalry started as internal WWF, and for whatever reason, the booking decided, well, we can't have a WWF guy face WWF guy during this fight for ultimate supremacy / survival. So, throw him in the lines. Other than X-Pac, who, poor Sean Waltman in 2001. God,
you dealing with the X-Crappa.
Oh, God. And just the X-Pac heat was such a real thing and it's persisted for far too long. It really did. But, Christian was the only one that really had to jump ship to keep the heat, because people understood Christian and why he was jealous and why he turned. And one of the greatest turns in history for multiple reasons. It's in their hometown. There's brothers on storyline purposes. He uses that gargantuan Stanley Cup like King of the Ring trophy, which you do that in Toronto, you desecrate what looks like the Stanley Cup in that town. You best hire yourself a tinted black car with unpunchable tires, man. Get the hell out of that place while you can.
Yeah.
So just a great feud and a great way to end it quick enough where it didn't overshadow the rest of the picture.
Very much so. From October 2001, we're going to jump back ahead a few years.
Okay.
And we're going to go to the second One Night Stand.
Ah, yes. Good Lord.
Edge, Foley, and Lita.
Yes.
Versus Tommy, Terry, and Beulah McGillicuddy.
Oh, man.
And, you figure where Edge and Foley formed their storyline respect.
Right.
You figure where Foley and even Lita cut their teeth, in the land of extreme.
Yes.
You figure that Beulah came out of whatever mothballs she had been in,
right,
to stand by her man, as Tammy Wynette said.
Yeah, baby.
And take the brutality that Mick and Edge threw her way, because they were not forgiving to Beulah McGillicuddy.
No.
At all.
No. That was definitely a lower than rated R level pinfall.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. After that, near the Beulah breaking spear. Oh,
right?
Woofa. And her reaction when she sees him, it's on the replay. Oh, shit. Bam. It's like she knew, and it was too late.
But goddamn, did she take it like a champ.
She always did, man. She took the 3D like a boss to end her career. I'll tell you what, Beulah Tricia Hayes, man, just forever respect. If there's a Hall of Fame for badass women, like, throw her in the mix, man. Oh, my God.
For real.
Love her to pieces. Always have.
She's one that I would love to meet.
Yes, definitely. If Tommy would ever, bring her and the kids along for whatever, dude.
I have met everybody in that picture except for Terry. And then obviously Beulah's not pictured. I've never met her, but everyone else involved in that match, the other four, I have met and have photographic evidence with.
Right. Interviewed Terry. I had the pleasure of meeting him. Met Mick. You and I met Mick together a few times at this point. But not Edge. I'm bummed about that for sure. Anyway,
Edge I met twice. I met him shortly after his King of the Ring run.
Nice.
Or his King of the Ring win, I should say.
Right.
And then I met him on the road to Mania 21. I don't remember if the news had broke yet about the Matt Lita thing.
Right.
Or if it was bubbling, or, it had come out, but everyone thought it was just a storyline at first.
Right.
And I went to Rob's store to meet him wearing a Team Extreme Matt, Jeff, and Lita, the animated purple shirt. And he commented on it, was like, nice shirt.
Yeah, I wonder if you had a reaction like you did of being positive after that, because there were no bigger Matt, the Hardy Lita fans that I knew at the time than you guys. So I don't know if it would have been all smiles and roses had you known. So it probably wasn't out there yet.
And if it had come out, then like I said, it may have just been one of those things where everyone still thought it was a storyline, because it wasn't until Matt called into the show,
right?
Whatever that one was called, I forget the.
Like this.
Thank you. It wasn't until that where the shit truly hit the fan.
Right. But anyway, we digress. We're going off into the weeds of that, which I'm sure we'll get to at some point here.
But you know what? It's part of the Edge saga. It's
very much.
So, it fits here. It's not like we're going off talking about, why the leaves are green in September. Number 4 on my list is the only one where I could not actually find a match graphic for.
Right.
Because they couldn't have prepped it that far in advance. Because we did not know who was going to get past the semifinals to meet in the finals of the King of the Ring.
Ah,
2001.
nice.
June 24th, 2001.
Right.
Thanks
And
to
again,
good old Shane O'Mac
right?
for his shenanigans, helping Kurt win his semis
Yep.
so that he would have to have this match, so that the match he would have with him would be Kurt's third of the night.
Yes.
Because, you know, we just have to tout what a boss beast Angle is, was, and forever will be.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
And again, how do you pick a great Edge versus Kurt Angle match within the span of your brain within a few minutes? You can't do it.
No.
But
so you go for the one that had the most monumental impact on Edge's career. Because as we've touched on a couple times, that King of the Ring victory over the Olympic gold medalist is when they officially put that rocket to his back, and it was on like Donkey Kong. It may have taken almost 5 more years for him to truly come into his own as champion, but they definitely saw something then.
They did.
And that's all the more reason why that Taboo Tuesday match against Hunter pisses me off.
Right? Definitely.
Number 3, we kind of alluded to when we discussed number 5 and One Night Stand.
Yes.
WrestleMania 22, the hardcore match against Mick Foley. And this was Edge just being like, I am sick and tired of pleasantries. I am done respecting people. It is about me now. And Foley trying to be the lovable goofball Foley that we always love, talking about, hey, remember when we used to do this stuff back in 2000 and we all kinds of good times? Nah, man, nah. They presented him with that hardcore title like a Lifetime Achievement Award, and Edge was like, no, bitch. It's over. You are going down. And I still go back to that match on occasion and relive that because the brutality was insane. It definitely took Edge to another level in his gimmick, in his career. Just
yeah, there's not a whole lot either one of us can say that won't keep us on the air for more than we need on hand here. And by the way, another spoiler, both lists.
I'm sure. I figured it would be on yours.
And
I'm sure this next match is on your list too, or at least some variety of it.
And if you're a longtime fan of mine, you know why, but we'll get there in a few minutes. Anyway.
Yeah, you know, like I said, I'm sure this next match is on your list. If not, one of the other 3 probably will be.
Right.
From April 1st, 2001, while we're talking about Mania.
Yep.
TLC.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Absolutely. It's not on there, but definitely honorable mention through there.
You don't have any TLC on there?
I didn't say any TLC, just this particular one.
Okay. So, like I said if you don't have this one, then you've some variation of it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Because you cannot have an Edge match, an Edge list without TLC.
Definitely not.
I mean, this was arguably, especially at the time, the greatest TLC match ever.
Oh, yeah. Right. Absolutely.
And it still holds up to this day.
Yes.
So you see those 9 matches, and you're like, well, what could be his number 1 if it's not Foley Edge, if it's not TLC? I may be in a league of my own on this one, but my number 1 is the match that really brought 4 men from wrestlers, from talent to superstars. No Mercy 99. The Terry Invitational Tournament Ladder Match Finals. Edge and Christian versus the New Brood, not the Hardy Boys.
Right.
The New Brood.
Yes, exactly.
This is the match that made everybody take notice of the four men involved.
Definitely.
And between the standing ovation they got that night at the pay-per-view and the one they received the following night on Raw, if you weren't already paying attention to Edge and Christian from their times within the Brood, if you weren't already paying attention from Matt and Jeff from their dark matches, their jobber matches, their horrid green plaid tights when they were trying to pledge Degeneration X, through their metamorphosis to the image in that picture and teaming up with Michael Hayes, dropping him to have Gangrel join them after Edge and Christian left, you were well aware who those men were after that night.
Yes, absolutely.
So there it is.
Love it.
Here are my top 10. We're going to pause for a moment for this quick commercial break. And when we return, Jeff will be here to discuss his top 10 Edge matches. Stay tuned to the Jeff Meacham Network.
So talk about the complete opposite of Rated R. There's our boy Hanksy there for Renegade's Reviews November. Tom Hanks, the quintessential PG at worst, unless he gets into some really heavy mental stuff in his movies. But man, you know how I feel about Tom Hanks. We talked about it earlier in the year that I haven't seen most of those. I feel like a bad Hanks fan seeing that trailer. It's like, damn, I got some stuff to do this month. So now that
To be fair, there's quite a few of those that I have never seen.
Right.
Very few of those that I already own.
Right.
Figured I had to come back and finish Hanks this year. So, I had to try to acquire some of those.
Yes.
Whether it's digitally or went to eBay to find some secondhand copies. But
thank God for places like eBay and the discount stores, man, because unfortunately for Mr. Hanks, a lot of his movies are in those bins at those discount stores. But you know what?
Those older ones definitely. I mean, I saw Volunteers at Penny Lane Records for $1.
I was gonna say you were just at Penny Lane a few weeks ago, and I know that was there because we talked about it. I was like, damn, that was $1. How the hell?
I already had purchased it elsewhere, so I kind of kicked myself for not having to wait it because I could have gotten it for $1. I think I paid $3, but still.
But Tom's one of those people where you don't mind paying actual suggested retail price, $19, $20, $30, because he is the greatest actor for our generation. And I can't wait to deep dive back into the world of Tom Hanks. But
Right.
let us come back to the era of awesomeness, the time of the Rated-R Superstar. I didn't get a chance to say it before you threw. By the way, beautiful throw to the break. Very nicely done, man. It's good stuff.
I did take a couple of production classes back in college, so I know
There
good
you
segues.
Such good stuff. Your list is it's good shit. It's gonna bring him back next week. I loved your list, and I it's one of those things where, again, we both love this guy. We've always loved this guy. You're going to be hard pressed, as the champ would say, to find a bad Edge match. So the fact that only one, if you can't honorable, 2, 3, 4 of our matches are similar. 3 on the list proper, 1 honorable, is amazing to me. So, but again, amazing yet not, because you figure if there's 4, if you can't honorable on my list that match up, that's still, 16 matches out of how many that, cracked our list. And like you said, the other hundreds are the honorable mentions. So he is one of the best ever, and we're going to definitely get there as we go. So my honorable mention did make your top 10, and I'm just going to throw it out there really quick. And it's not to say that it wasn't one of the best matches in WrestleMania history, in WWE history, in groundbreaking gimmick history. You figure Money in the Bank is a major point every single year. Out of the mind of Chris Jericho, out of the hard work of the 6 guys you see on the screen, out of the incredible work that Edge put in the following 9 months to make it what it became, Money in the Bank really was one of the better innovations of the post-Attitude Era WWF/WWE. And I feel it's a great concept. And when you line up 6 athletes like this, who the initial intent of Money in the Bank was, hey, they've either never been world champion or their world title run was so brief / hiccup and you missed it, they deserve another chance. You figure Benoit and Kane both fit in that category. You figure Chris Jericho's Undisputed run, if you read his book, Undisputed, was more crapped on than celebrated with candy. Those guys definitely belong in that match. No question about it. And you mentioned the various spots in that match. I will forever remember the spot that ended it. Benoit's got it. He's there. He's gonna win. He's gonna get his title shot. And Edge in a steel chair went, not today, not in my house, and ascended the Ultimate Opportunist platform, in addition to being the soon-to-be Rated-R Superstar. So, as much as Edge really strapped the rocket to himself in the King of the Ring final, which, by the way, is not on my list, but again, it mentions for days, this is where the rocket got, jet fuel 2.0 and just off he went. So just great match. And in fact, again, honorable mention, that says everything of how I feel about these next 10 matches. And for the record, as far as the tag team stuff goes, there are only 3 on my list, and only 2 are Edge and Christian. The 10th match on my list is not Edge and Christian in a tag team championship match.
Does it have a certain red and yellow brother?
No. As much as the moment was tremendous, the match was Edge and Hogan and Billy and Chuck. Yeah. Love the 4 of them, but yeah. No. It is actually a losing effort on the part of the Rated-R Superstar, as he teamed with a man who lives down the freeway from me, way down the freeway, almost to the border, against 2 guys who multiple mech issues going into this match, let alone later on, but became the very first SmackDown branded WWE Tag Team Champions, Edge and Mysterio versus Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit. Again, this match gets overlooked. Gee, I wonder why. This tournament, that storyline wise, Stephanie McMahon put together to counter the fact that they lost the World Tag Team titles to Monday Night Raw was so great. It played out so well on SmackDown television. And this match at No Mercy 2002, when you figure it gets overshadowed by Hell in a Cell between Brock and Undertaker, when you figure it gets overshadowed by the ridiculousness of the Kane Triple H storyline over the World Heavyweight and Intercontinental Championships being merged, this match stands out for me. It's four of the best athletes in the company. They're fighting over a championship. You've got Angle and Benoit, who would rather beat the dog out of each other than cooperate, but they cooperate, and it's beautiful. And they become the champions. And
4 of the SmackDown 6.
I was going to say, you throw in Eddie Guerrero there, you throw in
Chavito.
Los
Guerreros.
Chavo. Yeah, I mean, just a great reason, a great match, and a great reason why people look at Paul Heyman's SmackDown and go, that match right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Number 9 jumps ahead just under 6 years and jumps ahead to 5 days before my life completely changed forever. I'm sitting there in the Citrus Bowl in Orlando, Florida, and the main event of a show that my dad had paid for me to go across the country and see, along with touring the now 50-year-old Magical Kingdom of Walt Disney World. God, that makes me feel old as shit. Considering I was there for the 25th. So there you go. But the main event, the man from the dark side versus the Rated-R Superstar for the biggest prize on SmackDown, Edge and The Undertaker. When you figure that this feud had been born out of Edge creating another ultimate opportunity for himself by taking Mr. Kennedy out, becoming the Money in the Bank holder again, cashing in on a brutalized by Batista, destroyed by Mark Henry Undertaker. And this wasn't even the end of the feud. This was like the proverbial climax 2/3 of the way through the film. When you figure these guys went to SummerSlam inside Hell in a Cell, which we talked about, 2 shows ago. But this match for me, yeah, I'm biased. I was there. But it was a great finish to a pay-per-view. It was what we thought was a great finish to the feud. And it was just magic. You figure Edge is in the main event of WrestleMania. He's the champion, yes, but he's challenging that vaunted streak. And you and I have talked about over the years that if it should have been anybody, it should have been Orton or it should have been Batista. I throw this one in there as well.
I never thought it should have been Batista.
Well,
Orton is always my go-to because partially because I'm biased because I was there.
Right.
But partially because it was the midst of the Legend Killer build, and you don't get much more of a Legend Killer than to kill the streak at Mania.
Right. I'm not saying that you had said definitively Batista. Right. We've talked about Batista, you and I. And yes. I feel that if it wasn't Orton in that match with Batista 2 years later, man, first of all, they put that in the middle of the card, which was bullshit. When you figure that, yes, as great a match as John Cena and Shawn Michaels had, and they'd have better on Raw a few weeks later, let's not kid ourselves. Undertaker won the Royal Rumble. How do you not have the greatest of all of that generation of all time, really, The Undertaker, challenging in the main event?
That's what the Rumble's supposed to be. You win the Rumble, you get the main event at WrestleMania. You don't get a main event, you get the main event.
And when you figure, they, like you said, they perverted that to be, it can be in the middle of the card or whatever. When you think about it, it's like, okay, him winning the world title and Edge coming up short in Money in the Bank, the match itself that night, but then getting the briefcase anyway later on, really set the stage for, okay, Edge got the briefcase, cashed in on the man who main evented, should have been in WrestleMania. They took that and brought it to the main event the following year.
Mm-hmm.
That is why I feel Edge should have been a contender.
Oh, definitely.
To end the streak.
I won't argue Edge to end the streak.
Yeah. And when you figure that he lost here, but then regained his footing, won a match, kayfabe, to banish The Undertaker from the WWE universe, and only had to face him again because he done lost his damn mind. And the La Familia went, yeah, no, hell in a cell, bitch. You know, great feud. And to be able to see that feud unfold in the main event of WrestleMania with my dad, who was an Undertaker guy next to me, one of those Stanley Cup type moments, just great for me. We then move to number 8, which is another biased pick for me because I was there. It's the other WrestleMania I was at. The WrestleMania that, for lack of a better term, for the most part, gets really shit on because not a singles regular match to be had. No, I'm not looking at you, Stacy and Terry. That wasn't a regular match. That was a cat fight, literally, billed as such. But these 6 guys went in there and went, all right, well, it's an unconventional WrestleMania. Let's have an unconventional first ever triangle ladder match for the WWF Tag Team titles. And you think about the spots that were involved in this match and how they escalated exponentially over the next year and a half. You figure TLC at SummerSlam, TLC 2 at WrestleMania, the much forgotten TLC 3 with these 3 teams and Jericho and Benoit on SmackDown, which I was also at. You know, these guys defined a generation of tag team wrestling in the World Wrestling Federation / WWE.
Very much.
You know, TLC 2 was probably the greatest match the 3 teams had together. But I also knew you'd have it on your list because your love for TLC 2 cannot be denied. And I knew that it would be there. So I figured I'll put this match that I was at on my list and say, without the Terry Invitational Tournament final, yes. Without the tables match between the Hardys and Dudleys at Rumble, yes. Merging along the road to WrestleMania, you don't get this match. And I
completely agree.
And I agree with that. But
it would have been very easy for me to have Terry Invitational, Triangle Ladder match, TLC, TLC 2, TLC 3, all on my list. Very easy. But I felt like, okay, that's beating the gimmick to death.
Yeah. And we can't do that because beating a gimmick to death is not something never mind. Anyway.
The company that has Hell in a Cell pay-per-views doesn't know anything about beating gimmicks to death.
Yes. And as I mentioned on the Greg Cherry show, the week leading into Crown Jewel, the fact that Edge and Rollins in that Hell in a Cell match made Hell in a Cell mean something. However the match turned out, because again, we're taping prior to it, having Hell in a Cell as a one-off outside of the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view made me want to order Crown Jewel. Had I not been in the air, going to the cruise ship, I'd have been watching the show because I wanted to see a feud ender inside Hell in a Cell, which it is supposed to be. Damn it.
Exactly.
We talked about it on our Hell in a Cell show. Anyway.
Which you can go back to the archives here on the Jeff Meacham Network and check out from earlier this month.
4 weeks back. Dude, your promotional stuff today is just spot on, brother. Keep it up, brother. Anyway, I love it.
God, money.
Come back in 2 weeks. That's right. Actually, you gotta come back next week and watch Tom Hanks. Make sure you watch that on his channel, not my replay. Anyway, all right. Number 7 was one that was on your list, so we'll go ahead and briefly touch on it because I did want to touch on it. Mick Foley versus Edge from WrestleMania, the hardcore match, and I did say it was on my list for a variety of reasons. I got crap for naming this my favorite hardcore match of all time. Back when I did it it was definitely the Facebook era, so post 2009. I don't know exactly when I put it up, but Greg and I had a on comment board discussion on my page about it. And he said, how can you not have Foley and The Rock. It's like, it wasn't a hardcore match by definition. It was an I Quit match that became out of control hardcore. Well, what about Cactus and Orton? A great match. Career defining for both of them, for Mick Foley and for Randy Orton. This match put Edge back on the map of he should be main eventing every damn show. He had already been WWE champion for a grand total of 3 weeks because of 3 weeks, and lost it back to Cena at the Rumble, which everybody in the NoDQ circle was at a live event that one of our co-hosts was a part of, and watching that Rumble at the bar. And I had to fight to not drink myself back to stupid because we had to drive home after that. But Edge losing the title just pissed me off exponentially. I look back at my Cena fan now and I go, wow, what a mark. But
but you know what, Cena
I was 100%
or not, because that was back in the days when I was still like
me
rocking
too.
the wristbands and the hat and the whole shirt and everything.
Right. Yeah.
And I had my own little lock and chain. I was fucking heated.
Oh man, so mad. So mad.
Edge had worked so hard and waited
Yep.
so long to finally become King of the Mountain, to lose it less than a month later.
Yeah. And when you figure, and again, this is not going to be an attempt anyway, it may sound like it, to shit on Rey Mysterio, who challenged for the World Championship after winning the Royal Rumble and became World Champion that night. I know Edge loved the shit out of that because he and Rey are tight. Still are to this day. Freaking Adam's Uncle Adam to Dom, for crying out loud. For real, right? When you figure that the main event of that WrestleMania was a match where Triple H defied every basic definition of booking a match momentum-wise. I beat him, who cares? How do you put down the world champion? It makes you look bad. Oh, well, if you beat him, you beat John Cena. Who gives a shit? And if he beats you, you look worse. Horrible lead up. This is a main event match. Mm-hmm. This is two guys who, Mick had become and devolved, if you will, in the lovable Muppet again after the feud with Orton. Right?
There's nothing wrong with the Muppets.
No, there's not. But Mick Foley as a Muppet was not the Mick Foley we all needed, right?
Right.
Maybe in 99 when his career was, in jeopardy because of injuries, yeah. But 2006, you're going to bring Mick Foley back. We need the dark side. And Mick Foley brought out the dark side in this match. And good on him for doing it, man, because it was one of those things where had they both had bigger egos than they actually do, they could have gone back there and pulled a Shawn Michaels and go, follow that. Because other than the match, and I can't believe I'm saying this, in a show that had Orton versus Mysterio versus Angle and Triple H versus John Cena, in a show that, other than the match between the 50-something-year-old company owner and a guy who had been on blocks with a back injury just a couple years prior, Shawn Michaels and Vince McMahon, that WrestleMania is a mess. It really is. It's not it's not 1995 mess or 97 mess, but you figure Money in the Bank was great for personal reasons on our end, right? The two title matches, much like the one you went to the year before, it was like, like you knew Mysterio was going to win. It was almost fait accompli. But the WWE title match was so badly rolled down that road. It was just like, it's very much a hit and miss mania for me. And the streak match is just awful in that show with Mark Henry. No disrespect to the world's strongest man. Trust me, I ain't going down that rabbit hole getting my ass whooped. But this match and stupidly, the McMahon-Michaels no-holds-barred match completely saves this WrestleMania from just burial at sea. It really does. And Edge and Foley retired. No need to do the shit he did in that match. Edge needed it and got it. Every bit of Mick Foley he needed. He and Lita were on point that night. That flaming table spot is just absurd. And looking back, so stupid those two. I mean, really.
And I'm willing to bet you that that's the reason why Foley did it, is because Edge needed it. Because who was the person to come to them?
Yep.
Coming back behind the curtains after that No Mercy match and congratulating them on becoming superstars.
Mick Foley has always been the guy behind the Hardys and Edge and Christian. You figure, how often was Edge and Christian part of the Commissioner Foley goofy segments? Damn near every show.
So I'd be willing to put dollars, Vegas bet, Foley is the reason that match happened.
Yeah, Adam Copeland and Mick Foley are still to this day tighter than a drum, man. They are, and because they've literally been through hell together. This match is a wonderful showpiece of that. The whole thing that you mentioned, the match itself came out very well at One Night Stand, but the whole hokiness of the co-hardcore champion stuff and Paul Heyman, you're prostituting the name of hardcore. It was like, okay, I know where we're going, but at least we got to a point where it paid off well.
Mm-hmm.
But the build-up between WrestleMania and One Night Stand was like, oof, they're forcing this one. I mean, last year's was so organically good. It's just like, okay, let's just get Rob the title and get on with our lives. Thanks. I mean, that's what One Night Stand 2006 was getting the title of Raw. Really. So anyway, number 6 also on your list, and I did want to touch on something you didn't touch on in your segment of it. Orton versus Edge from Vengeance. The only Orton versus Edge match on my list. I surprised myself doing it, to be honest with you.
This was the match that started the reign that when they went into SummerSlam in Toronto, his hometown, the following month, they booed him out of that damn building like he was walking in as an American.
And he was booked to walk out the champion, which he did. And the crowd in Toronto, who had been the same crowd 5 years prior when he became the Intercontinental Champion on a one-off at a house show and celebrated like Toronto had won the Stanley Cup. I know, not going to happen. Just let me breathe. Hang on. Although, for the record, my dad, once again, picking them to go to the Stanley Cup Finals. So, for the love of God, Toronto, just get there so my dad can rest in peace when he does get there. Jesus.
You know what? If there's one thing I've learned in sports, never say never.
Oh, no.
You know, here we are, not sure how many weeks into the NFL because I don't pay attention. Who would have thought the Cowboys would be doing as well as they are this season?
You know,
based off of the way they've been playing the last few years.
I said it 2 weeks ago.
We could have started the season and been like, Cowboys going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
How they're doing.
I said 2 weeks ago, a healthy Dak Prescott is a dangerous Dak Prescott. In this same vein, a underappreciated, overly motivated Edge is a dangerous Edge. Yes. When you figure this match really was the catalyst to send him off of that cliff and into the insanity that became early 2005 and doing anything he could to win that contract at WrestleMania. It all starts in Toronto, in his hometown, where they were like, nah, we don't want you no more. And you figure 2 years and a little bit more after that, they go back into Toronto and he's defending the title in a TLC match. He's the heel. He's attacking the babyface's home and attacking the father. And he gets cheered like, again, Toronto was winning the Stanley Cup that night. So, Edge took this match and rolled down that road for 2 years and walked back in there and went, here it is for the week. Sorry, guys. Redemption, motherfuckers.
I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that Orton was so organically getting over.
Yep.
Yep. He started out as that heel that you hated. And my dad still does to this day. But he slowly started to become the heel that you loved.
Yes.
The heel that you respected. And a lot of it had to do with that backlash match against Cactus.
Yes.
And everything after that, you just saw this organic, meteoric rise to what would happen the following month.
When you figure he went into this match losing the Intercontinental title, but was over like Rover, he was so over. He walked into an empty ring in those nasty ass peach tights, found the big gold belt, and became world champion. He was still over. He didn't have to do anything except beat somebody that wasn't there in the ugly ass tights.
Saying he walked into the arena, found the belt in the middle of the ring, picked it up, and started posing.
See, I think that's why he chose those peach tights. He's like, I got nobody to work with. I got to stand out somehow. Peach gimmick. Woo! Yeah, no. Oh, my God. On the real.
And I had that figure, too. I had a couple different Ortons back in the day. I had one of the ones from the first scan where he had the AJ Styles, like, Midwestern haircut and the open mouth like he was screaming.
Yeah.
I had one of those. And then when they did the second scan, I want to say I had the peach tights and I had the teal tights.
Yeah, I mean, peach tights, baby face. If you find a hair outside the top of his head, you've got somebody in the factory making a ha-ha because the fucker didn't have any hair on his body at all. Seriously. Oh my God. Anyway, we're getting off into Orton figure discussion on an Edge show. Just weird shit. Anyway. And again, they went on to have
baby. It all ties together.
They had amazing stuff together. They very rarely touched where it was rough. This match was actually pretty rough as far as the crowd, but the match was awesome.
Yeah.
Then you have a match that people do not ever talk about, and it bugs the shit out of me.
Okay.
And only because it was less than a little bit more than 2 weeks before one of the worst things in the history of the business involving one of these people. It was I don't think it was actually a championship match that Teddy and Vicky as his assistant booked on SmackDown, but Edge was the world champion going into the match and walked out with the big gold belt as champion to face Chris Benoit on the June 8th, 2007 episode of SmackDown. When you figure that's 2 weeks and 2 days before that weekend, that day in Georgia, this match gets overlooked. And I went back and watched it just to make sure I wasn't out of my damn mind. It earns every bit of Big Dave's 4.5 stars. Every bit of it. It is a great one-on-one match between an Edge who had come into his own, had regained the championship opportunity after regaining the briefcase from Kennedy and cashing in the Undertaker a couple weeks before. You've got Chris Benoit. Granted, he's not in the best place in his life mentally. He's not, he's going down a very dark path, as we all know, looking back with retrospect. But the Chris Benoit going into what was going to be his ECW championship win at that pay-per-view, man, Benoit was hitting all points. He was cooking with gas. He was moving. He had a great summer. He got drafted to ECW and was going to become champion. Stephanie indicated that during the whole fallout of the incident with his family. Again, you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know what was going on. because these two had an unbelievable pre-recorded television encounter that just set the room ablaze. It was amazing. Yeah. And it's just, and I'm getting teary. It's just flipping tragic when you think about 2 weeks later how everything completely goes bass backwards for Chris. Amazing singles match, one of the forgotten ones that, you know, I always talk about the TLC 3 with Benoit and Jericho against the three teams. This match never gets mentioned ever, 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 and it sucks.
I don't think I've seen that match since it aired, and I know why, obviously,
right?
Because it's not going to be on any of the Best Edge DVDs.
No,
then we got to draw attention to it.
No,
but I don't know. I don't know what it is that really doesn't make it stand out to me. Like, I can sit here, as horrible a memory as I have, right, and I can remember where I was, 20 years ago, whatever, watching that match, Benoit and Austin in Edmonton,
right,
on SmackDown.
Yeah,
I can remember everything about watching that match.
Yep.
I don't even remember seeing this one air because it doesn't stick out in my brain. Yeah, and I don't know if maybe my brain has blocked it because of the tragedy that happened a couple weeks later, but right. I don't think that's it, because I've been one of the few advocates of still putting Chris Benoit in the Hall of Fame. Right. I know it'll never happen. But
we always joke about Orton finding the championship and the whole thing, and that's kind of a running gag on this show and this network.
Yeah, but I mean, it started off with the Sid breaking the leg joke, and now it's that. So
right? Yeah. Well, but yeah, I had forgotten it was born out of Vince McMahon, who had devolved mentally himself in storyline after losing the ECW championship back to Lashley. Remember, that summer of 07 was when that was the SmackDown before the limo explosion, right? So Vince was completely off his, old man rocker anyway. He kind of like waltzed onto the cutting edge and booked that match. His facial expressions during that promo were just he was twisted sister gone. He just bye-bye. Vince go by 999. And Teddy and Vicky are like, we better book this shit. So they booked it. So that it was a very convoluted road to get there, and it wasn't the main event. It was the start of hour 2, pretty much. But again, a great solid effort by two amazing Canadian athletes, which brings me to number 4, another match between two amazing Canadian athletes. It's funny, Bama before there. He wasn't number 4, but a man who was very much an inspiration for Chris Benoit falls into the opponent category for Edge in this one. And much like your King of the Ring final, no match graphic, because it was a one-off, open to pay-per-view, blink and you missed it. Edge versus Owen Hart. I don't know why I chose the Edge picture, probably just because he was still a brooding mystery guy, and it's what he looks like. But I picked the Owen Hart thing for a reason, man. Hamilton was all up on the King of Hearts. They were loving him. And he walked in there like, yep, that's right. I'm back in Canada, bitches. Throw it up. I'm a member of the nation. I'm trying to be a rebellious white guy in a group of black boys, but love me, my country. Love me. And they did, man. And they loved both these guys in this match. And again, it's a pay-per-view opener. You blink, you miss it in your memory. But man, it meant so much to Edge that his pay-per-view singles debut was against Owen Hart. And I can't do an Edge show of greatest matches. And when you look back, the match holds up very nicely. Why am I not surprised with Edge and Owen Hart in the match holding up nicely? Just solid stuff.
That match right there is one of the main reasons I still have this.
Yep.
And if any match was going to be an official honorable mention for me, that was going to be it.
So good.
I mean,
it is very much like it's not the same kind of tragedy, but man, Owens last year, damn, he hit on every point, man. He went from his family being literally betrayed by the company, rose out of the ashes like a phoenix, had a great set of matches with Hunter and Sean there in the early part of the year. Then, he had the thing where he had the thing with Severn and Shamrock, and he snapped and joined the Nation, which was sketchy at first, but it worked out really well. Like you said, he's part of the Nation here, but it's still all good here. Then he goes into the stuff with Southern, with Canadian Country with Jeff Jarrett and Deborah. Just great stuff. And the Blazer coming back ultimately proved to be not a good idea, but his stuff as the Blazer was hysterical.
I was going to say the stuff he was doing with Blazer was spot on. It was just so perfect and everything except the entrance at Over the Edge 99.
Yep.
That he was doing with the Blazer was flawless. I mean, they had taken this goofy gimmick, and granted, he was still goofy.
Right.
But they totally flipped him into this Hogan parody as a way to knock on WCW when they didn't need to.
At that point,
because they were already winning the war.
Oh, yeah.
But where did his brother go? To WCW.
Yep.
So Owen was making fun of the company that his brother and his stepbrothers were all in.
Yeah. I mean, you figure his brothers-in-law and his brother. I got you. No worries. It's okay. And, whatever Brett felt about Hogan, and Lord knows we've heard about that over the years. Owen didn't really dislike anybody. And the fact that Hulk was at Brett Owens' memorial shows how much there was mutual love there, really. But yeah, you figure I talk about all that stuff, the Nation and the feud with DX at the beginning and everything. This match gets way too overlooked, way too often, and it's bullshit.
Well, part of that is because of what happened to Owen and the lawsuits.
Right, I know.
Part of that is because even when they were churning out DVDs on a regular shortly after DVD became the format, I don't think that pay-per-view ever got a DVD release.
It didn't. It still hasn't got a DVD/Blu-ray release because you figure you got the network/Peacock now. So
well, yeah, now it would be irrelevant, but when DVD became the thing there in 99 and the early 2000s, and they were going back and they were retro doing some of their big pay-per-views.
Yep.
That one never got a release.
You figure if you have a best of In Your House DVD between 95 and 99, how is that match not on the top of the list? I mean, really. You got the Brett matches from In Your House, which are always good. Hakushi, Lawler, all that. But this match stands out for me.
Yeah, I completely agree. And like I said, if there was going to be an official honorable mention on my list, that is definitely it. One of the other ones that I went back on this to revisit, because it would have been an honorable mention if it hadn't been 2 minutes and a disqualification, was the one with Mr. Perfect.
Yes.
But Heat. That match was so. Anyways, what do you got next for us?
My number 3 was your number 1.
Okay.
And believe it or not, I found the official match graphic and messed it up enough where it actually looks somewhat decent. It's the tit, baby. The Terry Invitational final deciding match in a ladder match at No Mercy 99. Very much more so in my picture than yours. The brooding Hardy Boys against ENC. And I'm not sure why Christian's head is so big. Maybe because Jay's head really is that big. I don't know. But yeah, you can see why the graphic designers of the 21st century went back and went, yeah, this looks like shit. We're going to make it better so JJ can use a better one in 2021. Because, man, is this thing rough. Wow.
Not as rough as Terry. Oh,
and we love Terry, but yeah, it's rough. It's rough. And I only know this is the official match graphic because they used the exact same Terry picture in the match with Kat at WrestleMania. And if you go back and look at the WrestleMania 2000 graphic I used earlier, yeah, same pictures of ENC. So I mean, yeah,
no, because that just got the code on there.
That's true. Well, everybody but chat about that. Anyway, it's a mess of a graphic, but it is the match that put these guys on the map.
Yeah,
and like I was going to say during your dissertation of it, and like I stand by. People very rarely remember, unless they see match graphic with the tit out there on full display there like they were, that it was a Terry involvement thing because she wasn't with the Hardys too much past Royal Rumble. So it became the defining moment for those four guys, which it should have been. But the entire point of it in the first place was about Terry and choosing her new clients. And you figure the year Terry had with those guys, and then with Saturn, and then going with Raven because Saturn fell in love with the mop. It's like, man, I will always treasure Terry Runnels in my heart because of her appearance on my show back in the day. But man, post Dustin, not good. As far as career wise. But these four, these two tag teams, these four made superstars after they walked through that curtain in Cleveland. Man, just a amazing match between two of the greatest tag teams of our generation of WWE fandom. No question in my mind.
I will never stop talking highly of this match.
Nope.
And when you figure this is the same pay-per-view where Jeff Jarrett put a gun to Vince McMahon's back to get money before he went out there and dropped the Intercontinental title to China.
Hey, it's Jeff Beach. If you listen to My World on ad-free shows, anyway.
100%.
100%. Fuck.
But anyways, when you figure it's the same pay-per-view, and how essentially 5 careers were made the same night, because China had definitely already had a decent career, but no one, I don't think, will argue that she came into her own as an in-ring performer with her feud with Jarrett. Yep. And that night was the culmination, her getting the IC title for the first time. Yep. And then those 4 men, I mean, 5 careers were made that night.
When you figure that was the first one-on-one world championship pay-per-view match between Triple H and Steve Austin in the main event, and I had to dig in my brain to remember that to say it. Tells you everything about the Intercontinental title match that night and the Terry Invitational Tournament final. I couldn't tell you who the tag title match was. Can't even go there in my head right now. Won't happen. I remember Joni's moment, and I remember these 4. Just a great, like you said, 5 careers. And when you think about the money he got and the push he got when he got there, 6 careers if you count Double J. Because he walked on Nitro and clucked Bagwell over the head and went, I'm the chosen one around here. And 2000 was his year, brother.
Oh, yeah.
So, but that whole other podcast is My World over on adfreeshows.com, by the way. There you go.
100%. 100%.
Without question, Jay. Without question.
Don't get too ornery now.
That's okay. We all know Red Ass Jeff is the best ass Jeff for business. Anyway, that's your Arts podcast, also on adfreeshows.com. Conrad, checks in the mail. There you go. Very good. All right. So my check, right? Anyway.
Conrad, I was going to say, Conrad needs to be sending us a check for all this shameless promotion.
But we do love Conrad, and we do love the podcast.
Great stuff. I think almost every week that we film, My World is the only podcast wrestling that I listen to on a regular basis.
Yes.
All the others on that channel may be outstanding. You can speak their praise if you want. But the only one I tune into on a weekly basis, because I want to hear what they say and the dynamic that they have is just so great, is Jarrett and Conrad.
I mean, you figure
And
that
I guess you would be Conrad here, and I'm Jeff Jarrett, double J over here, baby.
And when you figure that Jarrett was so resistant for so long to doing shoot interviews, any of those things, and I was just like, man, whatever, I don't give a shit. So I love it. Number 2 is one I wrestled with for a minute because it's one of those where they've had so many great matches. They had such a tremendous rivalry. And I didn't want to make this a show about this feud because Lord knows I could. What match do I put? And I know, and the more I thought about which match, the higher the ranking went for the match quality and the presentation.
I believe the opponent is going to be a man we can't see then.
Very much so. From Backlash 2009, Last Man Standing for the World Heavyweight, not WWE Championship, John Cena versus Edge.
I love the look on Edge's face. He's like, really? I got to fight this asshole again?
And when you think about the finish and the man who is now having no more BS, Paul White, throwing John through that freaking lighting fixture to conk him out for the 10 count. And then Edge taking that world championship really into the summer and going to war with Jeff Hardy again, which led to the first attempt at a Summer of Punk, and Vince squashed that like a bug because it's Vince.
Because the Shawn Jericho feud needs the belt.
Well, no, that was the year before.
That was the year before?
This was the one where Punk and Jeff traded the belt a couple different times, and then Undertaker got it back inside the cell. That was the whole Teddy Longstreet Undertaker Montreal thing, and I just literally almost opened my mouth talking about that. So
somebody got screwed in Montreal. Got it.
Yeah. Anyway, do you see the green? Do you see the green? Yeah. Anyway, but this match, and really when you think about this rivalry, this particular facet of the rivalry, and the month before at Mania, where it was that triple threat where Big Show was involved and he was messing around with Vicky, even though she was married to Edge, and John Cena was the stool pigeon of that. It was just like, this is rough. This match, much like I dare say Backlash 2000, where it should have been these two in the main event instead of the fatal 4-way shenanigans that was at WrestleMania 2000. Very much the same thing here for me. These two guys who always dance divinely together really had a solid outing here in a match that is guaranteed to be brutal on the body. Within reason back then, obviously, because they'd had Last Man Standing a decade before with Foley and Rock after the I Quit horrors, and they had to go, okay, govern all of them. So, but these two guys really went to war. They always did. And this Last Man Standing match was a great, great battle within the overall war. Absolutely love it. All right. Drum roll for just a sec. Number 1.
I was going to say, we've heard quite a few monumental selections, Mr. Meacham. Yes. What does the professor have on deck for his numero uno? Is it Conquistador Uno?
No, numero uno is it's a deep dish with really good. Oh wait, we're not on pizza. Sorry. That was a bad joke. Maybe 5 people got, but I'm okay with it. Sorry. Got your money. Come back in 2 weeks, but don't go based on that comment.
Right.
Terrible. Just bad, Jeff.
I was gonna say, I liked my Conquistador lead in, man. Like, totally just steamrolled that.
Yes, but you know what? It's funny. The Conquistador stuff with Edge and Christian and the Hardys is also very much overlooked and forgotten, and it shouldn't be, because when you think about who the actual Conquistadors were during that stuff and how much we adore one of them, the other one we can take or leave for sure. But
for those of you that don't know, it's Aaron Aguilera and the fallen angel Christopher Daniels.
Daniels is the one we adore. Aaron, with all due respect to Aaron's place in history here in SoCal, was never very cooperative with Team No DQ or even later on when I did stuff. So I always appreciated his talent, great in ring talent. His attitude was just a bit poopy,
WWE fans probably know him best as Jesus
which is
from the
why I didn't.
Carlito angle.
Yeah, again, it's one of those things where you want to just yak in your mouth, remembering it, looking back, it's like, oh, it's terrible.
Hey, but at least he was never Kurt's bitch.
No, and yeah, I don't think about that either because equipment broken and people hurting. Anyway,
numero uno, Jeff.
This is one of those matches where the feud kind of had a shaky start. They had a decent, but not a game-changing match at SummerSlam. They had a decent, but didn't really get over the hump match at Unforgiven. In front of me, by the way, 2002. Then they went to SmackDown, took the cuffs off, and went no DQ. And turned out one of the best matches, in my opinion, and the best match of Edge's career. Versus Eddie Guerrero in September 2002 on SmackDown.
Interesting.
These two guys, again, we mentioned the SmackDown 6 earlier. These two guys, for my money, were my two favorite of that SmackDown 6. And I just wish to hell that Edge's ascent to the main event scene would have happened, like you said, in 2004. Because who was the WWE champion in 2004? Eddie Guerrero. Can you imagine freshly turned, frustrated, obnoxious to everybody Edge against the lovable fan favorite WWE champion, and what could have been? I am not trying to take away from JBL's place in history, love, hate, whatever with John, but Edge and Guerrero for the championship in that summer, you talk about a pop retrospectively, I'm going to need a towel thinking about that, man. Oh my God, what could have been. And these, like I said, I liken it, looking back now, to the whole Punk Morrison thing. Decent match to replace the Benoit stuff. Decent match at SummerSlam. But they just, like, the dances seemed uncoordinated.
The chemistry wasn't clicking.
Right, yeah. The spark hadn't hit and really ignited the flame. This match on SmackDown, Punk and Morrison on ECW TV in September, lightning bolt. Just amazing. And again, that's a hot take for me to say that almost a throwaway match on SmackDown in 2002 is Edge's greatest match. You talk to Adam now, he still talks about that match as the match that really he holds dear to his heart, and had the neck injuries not hastened because of this feud with Eddie Guerrero and the cage and everything that happened that fall, it would have put him on that main event trajectory had he not gotten hurt. Because Eddie Guerrero was one of those guys where you dance well with Eddie, you can dance well with the roster.
Pretty much.
For me, my money, that's Edge's greatest match.
Okay. What do you guys think out there, the fans and viewers of the Jeff Meacham Network? We'd love to know. If you haven't already been dropping your favorites over here next to me, please start doing so at this time. If you tune in a little bit later in the day, watching on demand, leave your favorites underneath the Edge's Top 10 Greatest Matches graphic. This has been a good one. This was a lot harder than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
Some of our top 10s for people, super duper easy.
Yes.
This one and the one we've got coming at the end of November,
I'm gonna say, yeah,
are so difficult though.
Yes.
But before we get to the end of November, next week here in this time slot, make sure you tune in for the replay of Renegade's reviews, Nothing in Common, starring Tom Hanks and Jackie Gleason.
Nice. Jackie Gleason
should be a hell of a movie. I have actually never seen it before, so I'm curious
to see
what transpires between those two. And then in 2 weeks, right back here on this channel, in this time slot, the next edition of the Dads, not always on wrestling. I don't know if you have the graphic ready, but there we go. The top 10 all-time Pixar feature films. We will not be discussing the shorts. We won't be discussing the little TV specials like Toy Story of Terror or Toy Story That Time Forgot. Just the feature films. So Toy Story, Monsters, Inc., Finding Nemo, Brave, The Incredibles, all those and their sequels and more.
And yes, we can very take the easy way out and go 4 Toy Stories, 2 Nemos, 2 Incredibles. We're done. Good night, everybody. And 3 cars. And we got kids. No, we love these movies. And even the Walt Disney Company has admitted the Pixar partnership done saved the animation department.
Yeah.
And when you think about, I'll never forget that moment that Bob Iger talked about on the Imagineering series. He was out at Disneyland, just randomly out there, one day, watching a parade of the current Disney characters that are prevalent in people's minds. And he looked back and he went, it's a lot more Pixar than Disney. So Pixar's partnership began and really beginning in earnest in 95 with the release of Toy Story.
Yeah.
Really brought the post-Renaissance funk out of, mothballs pretty much and really resurrected the franchise. So
yeah, because you could say that with the release of the first Toy Story, you very much transcended from the Renaissance into a whole new era, because the movies that came out there in the mid-90s, and again, no disrespect to Pocahontas, Mulan, Hunchback of Notre Dame, Tarzan, all of which are considered part of the Renaissance, none of them, in my opinion, hold a candle to Toy Story, Toy Story 2, Monsters, Inc., Nemo. The first few films to come out of Pixar in the same general time frame.
Right. I'll mention this, I'm sure, later when we get to the episode itself, and I think I actually did that. We taped it. If I didn't, I'll say it now. The fact that Disneyland was searching forever to find a way to refurb the submarines, and then Nemo came along and it went, aha. So
yeah,
it just shows the greatness of the Pixar franchise. Anyway,
then yes, on this channel, the replay that I know Jeff is probably most looking forward to for Tom Hanks month, as we will be discussing Saving Mr. Banks.
Yes.
The story behind the story of Walt's acquisition of Mary Poppins.
My favorite movie, live action hybrid Disney movie, combined with the awesomeness of the story of Walt and P.L. Travers. And like I said, Tom Hanks can do almost no wrong, but man, playing Walt had to be heavy on his head.
Yes.
And he, again, we'll talk about it in a couple weeks, but wow.
And then on the 25th, Thanksgiving Day, a special lost episode of the Dads Not Always on Wrestling will be premiering. It will be our take of the 25th anniversary celebration of a group that is just too sweet.
I am proud of that graphic, damn it. I love that one. I did good on this one. So yes, the NWO, it was supposed to be up in July. I took my little hiatus because I was burnt like a freaking crispy chicken piece. I get it. But I'm proud of this episode. I'm glad we did it. I'm glad I'm bringing it in. And when you talk about black and white on Thanksgiving, and now I'm talking about Tim Allen's charred turkey on Christmas and Santa Claus, because Lord knows that's a thing. The next day is a day that you and I both dread in our history of employment, because it is Black Friday.
Yes. 1 month roughly from today, 4 weeks.
Yes.
On Black Friday, we will be discussing the best of the man from the dark side,
Yeah, baby.
the man from Death Valley as opposed to Hill Valley, the Undertaker's all-time greatest matches.
And again, you said it yourself when we started the promotion for this month. This is gonna be a bitch. It just is.
I mean, we've got so much stuff on deck here for the Jeff Meacham Network, for the Casa D18 Studios channel. And that doesn't even put into effect the weekly episodes of Talk Wrestling, Stat Boy Sports Bar, The Greg Cherry Show, and whatever else may crawl up into Jeff's head that make him decide to sit down here and go live for y'all.
Yeah, it's very funny. Later on tonight, post SmackDown, I will actually be covering Aaron's shift, if you will. He's got prior engagements today, so I will be doing his, God help me, SmackDown review. Hopefully, SmackDown's a decent show tonight, because man, sometimes doing these reviews for him is rough. I'm not gonna lie. SmackDown's been pretty consistent. I was at SmackDown a couple weeks ago, of course. We both were out there at the arena that day, so hopefully the trend has continued and we get a decent SmackDown tonight, and then I'll get to cover it all for NoDQ.com. So be sure you check that out coming up later on tonight on the NoDQ side of things. But please come back here next week. Draw money. Come back next week, because we're finally in November. And, you know, you and I both know, Jay, anything past October 31st is thanks to Hanukkah Christmas time. It's a beautiful time in our neighborhoods.
You know, as soon as the clock strikes midnight, bringing in November 1st, it is Christmas time for me.
Yes.
Nothing against Thanksgiving.
No.
Some of the greatest Christmas movies start or feature Thanksgiving as part of the film.
Right. If not a direct, blunt start to the show.
Yeah. Miracle on 34th Street.
Mm-hmm.
So beginning November 1st, man, you're going to start. You won't see it in the Pixar because that was filmed back in like May.
Right.
But starting November 1st, man, you're going to see that tree out here in my shots. I'm going to be cruising down the streets in my hoopty, bumping my Christmas playlist.
And then when the midnight November 1st hits, that means I'm 17 days away from going home.
Yes.
Which we saw in the trailer before the show, of course. But, you know.
We've got Jeff's trip to Disneyland during the course of the month. Good times are ahead. And we are going to bringing you guys with us for as much of it as we can.
Yes. Within the limits of technology that befell both of us all the time.
Listen, as best as we can.
Yes.
So, until next time here on the Jeff Meacham Network and on DADS, not always on wrestling.